Have you ever wondered why governments worldwide guard UFO-related documents with such secrecy? For decades, reports of unidentified flying objects have been systematically silenced. Documents have been classified as ultra-secret, and witnesses have been discredited. But what is really being hidden from the global population? The answer to this question reveals one of the most sophisticated cover-up operations in human history, involving multiple government agencies, international coordination, and psychological warfare techniques that would make any intelligence agency proud. The story I'm going to share with you today involves a secret operation that shaped how the entire world perceives the phenomenon of unidentified flying objects. We're talking about a conspiracy that crossed presidential administrations, involved the highest military spheres, and created a disinformation system so sophisticated that it still determines what we know about extraterrestrial life today. This isn't just another conspiracy theory built on speculation and hearsay. This is a documented operation with paper trails, witness testimonies, and evidence that has been slowly emerging from classified archives over the past 75 years. What we'll discover in the next few minutes will challenge everything you think you know about government transparency. We'll see how real documents were mixed with false information to confuse researchers, how military witnesses were permanently silenced through intimidation and worse, and how a secret organization controlled the narrative about extraterrestrial contact for decades. We'll explore how this operation created a template for information control that extends far beyond UFOs, influencing how governments manage public perception on countless sensitive topics. Prepare yourself to learn the true face of an operation that transformed humanity's greatest discovery into one of modern history's best-kept secrets. It all began in the summer of 1947, when extraordinary events started unfolding in American skies with an intensity that caught military intelligence completely off guard. The most well-known incident occurred in July in the New Mexico desert, but few know that this was just one episode in a series of events that forced the American government to create the most elaborate information control system in history. What makes this summer so significant is not just the frequency of sightings, but the caliber of witnesses reporting them. Kenneth Arnold had spotted 9 disc-shaped objects flying in formation over the Cascade Mountains in Washington state, traveling at speeds that exceeded anything known to human aviation at the time. The report made newspaper headlines, coining the term flying saucers. But what the population didn't know was that the military had been recording hundreds of similar sightings for months. Experienced pilots with thousands of flight hours, air traffic controllers with spotless records, and high-ranking military officers with top-secret clearances were reporting encounters with objects that defied all known laws of physics. These weren't random civilians seeking attention or fame. These were trained professionals whose careers depended on accurate observation and reporting. Commercial airline pilots described objects that accelerated from 0 to thousands of miles per hour instantly. Radar operators tracked bogies that made impossible right-angle turns at tremendous speeds. Military pilots attempted intercepts, only to watch their targets vanish without a trace or perform maneuvers that would have liquefied any human pilot. The mystery deepened when, just 2 weeks after Arnold's sighting, an unidentified object crashed into the ground in the desert. Near the town of Roswell, the first rescue teams that arrived at the scene found wreckage of a material they had never seen before. Metal that couldn't be cut, dented, or burned, with properties that defied the scientific understanding of the time. Witnesses described fragments that would return to their original shape when crumpled, material lighter than aluminum but stronger than steel, and debris that seemed to generate its own internal light. But the wreckage wasn't the most disturbing discovery. Approximately 3 kilometers from the impact site, 4 small bodies were found scattered across the desert floor. humanoid in basic structure, but definitely not human in origin. 3 had died on impact, their fragile forms no match for the violent forces of the crash. But the 4th survived long enough for the military medical team to realize they were facing something that would forever change their understanding of our position in the universe. The surviving being communicated through some form of telepathic connection before succumbing to its injuries, leaving behind more questions than answers about the nature of consciousness itself. The government's response was swift, coordinated, and absolutely ruthless in its efficiency. Within hours, an official version was created and disseminated to the press with military precision. The object would be merely an experimental weather balloon, part of the classified Project Mogul designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests. Civilian witnesses were interrogated by military intelligence officers and instructed to remain silent under threat of prosecution for revealing state secrets. The military personnel involved received maximum classification orders, with careers and pensions threatened for anyone who might consider speaking out. And thus was born the first great cover-up of the modern era, setting a template that would be refined and perfected over the coming decades. President Harry Truman immediately understood the implications of what had been discovered, and the weight of this knowledge fundamentally changed his approach to governance and national security. The existence of intelligent extraterrestrial life was not just a scientific matter, but a national security issue with ramifications that could destabilize American society, crash global stock markets, undermine religious institutions, and shift the entire balance of world power. The Cold War was intensifying, and the last thing America needed was public panic about superior beings from another world. In September 1947, just 2 months after the Roswell incident, Truman signed an ultra-secret executive order that created a special committee of 12 men, each carefully selected for their unique combination of expertise, influence, and absolute discretion. These were not ordinary politicians seeking publicity or career advancement, but the brightest minds and most influential leaders of the American military and scientific establishment. Individuals who understood that some knowledge was too dangerous for public consumption. Among the selected members was Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, first director of the CIA, who reported directly to the president and had extensive experience in psychological warfare operations developed during World War II. General Nathan Twining, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, who had personally commanded the recovery operations at Roswell and witnessed firsthand the advanced technology that had been recovered. Vannevar Bush, architect of the Manhattan Project and one of the minds behind the atomic bomb, brought his understanding of how scientific breakthroughs could reshape global politics overnight. But perhaps the most intriguing member of this secret group was Donald Menzel, a respected Harvard astronomer who would publicly become the greatest skeptic regarding UFOs in the United States, writing books and articles that systematically debunked every major sighting with scientific sounding explanations. Menzel wrote entire books explaining sightings as natural phenomena, optical illusions, weather balloons, or atmospheric inversions. What the public didn't know was that Menzel possessed ultra-secret clearance with the CIA, made frequent and mysterious trips to New Mexico and other classified installations, all financed by unlimited government black budgets that left no paper trail. The choice of Menzel revealed the true nature of this operation with crystalline clarity. It wasn't just about studying the extraterrestrial phenomenon and developing defensive strategies, but actively controlling how the world population would perceive any future evidence of intelligent life beyond Earth. By placing a respected scientist in the role of chief debunker, they created the perfect cover story that could dismiss any genuine evidence as the fantasies of unreliable witnesses or misidentified natural phenomena. The extent of control exercised by this secret organization only became clear decades later, when researchers discovered one of the most audacious evidence erasure operations ever documented in the history of scientific institutions. In 1952, Donald Menzel assumed the directorship of Harvard Observatory, one of the world's most respected astronomical institutions, with a reputation built over centuries of meticulous scientific observation and documentation. Harvard had been systematically photographing the sky since 1882, accumulating one of the largest collections of astronomical photographic plates on the planet through the dedicated work of generations of astronomers and graduate students. 500,000 images that documented 70 years of celestial observation, including detailed records of Mars, the Moon, planetary movements, stellar phenomena, and inexplicable atmospheric anomalies that had puzzled scientists for decades. This collection represented an irreplaceable archive of astronomical history, with some plates being the only existing record of certain celestial events. In Menzel's first months as director, something extraordinary and deeply troubling happened that sent shockwaves through the international astronomical community. 1/3 of this entire precious collection was systematically destroyed in what appeared to be a carefully planned operation. 150,000 irreplaceable photographic plates were eliminated without any plausible scientific justification, their destruction supervised by Menzel personally with military precision. Additionally, Menzel completely suspended Harvard's astronomical observation program for 15 years, effectively blinding one of the world's premier observatories during a crucial period of space exploration and discovery. Menzel's colleagues in the scientific community were perplexed and increasingly suspicious about these unprecedented actions. Why would an astronomer destroy astronomical data that had taken decades to collect? What was in those images that justified their elimination? Why would Harvard, with its proud tradition of discovery, suddenly abandon its mission of observing and documenting the heavens? Decades later, when the extent of this operation came to light through Freedom of Information Act requests and whistleblower testimonies, it became clear that the destroyed plates contained photographic evidence of unidentified objects, unusual aerial phenomena, and anomalous activities around military installations that could contradict the official narrative about American airspace security. This episode, known in the astronomical community as the Menzel Gap, represents one of the most documented examples of how science was deliberately compromised to serve an information control agenda. It demonstrated that no institution, no matter how prestigious or historically significant, was immune from the reach of this secret operation when it threatened the carefully constructed narrative about extraterrestrial phenomena. The strategy developed by this secret organization was much more sophisticated than simple denial or intimidation, representing a quantum leap in psychological warfare techniques that would influence government propaganda methods for generations. They understood that it was impossible to completely silence all UFO reports in a free society with an independent press, so they created a disinformation system that mixed partial truths with false information, creating a labyrinth of confusion that would trap researchers for decades. The objective was to contaminate any serious investigation with incorrect data, creating an environment where it became impossible to separate real facts from deliberately planted fiction. This technique, known in intelligence circles as poisoning the well, involved releasing genuine classified information alongside obviously fabricated materials, ensuring that researchers would waste years following false leads while discrediting themselves in the process. One of the best documented cases of this strategy involved Paul Benowitz, a successful businessman and electronic engineer who lived near Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. one of the most sensitive military installations in the United States. Benowitz had detected strange radio signals using sophisticated electronic equipment and spotted unidentified objects performing impossible maneuvers over the military base during his evening observations. His investigations were approaching genuinely sensitive information about classified military projects, advanced aircraft testing, and possibly recovered extraterrestrial technology being reverse-engineered at the facility. Instead of simply silencing Benowitz through legal intimidation or physical threats, intelligence agents initiated an elaborate psychological campaign that would become a textbook example of sophisticated mind manipulation. They confirmed some of his discoveries to establish credibility and gain his trust, then began feeding him increasingly fantastic information about underground alien bases, genetic experiments involving human-alien hybrids, and conspiracies involving different extraterrestrial species with competing agendas on Earth. For several years, Benowitz was systematically manipulated by intelligence operatives who posed as fellow researchers and government insiders willing to reveal the real truth about the alien presence. They provided him with forged documents, staged fake evidence, and arranged controlled leaks of disinformation until he lost the ability to distinguish between reality and the fantasies that had been carefully planted in his mind. His credibility was completely destroyed within the UFO research community. His marriage collapsed under the stress, and any genuine information he possessed was buried under layers of carefully crafted disinformation that continues to circulate today. Not all members of the government elite were willing to participate in this silencing operation, and those who refused to comply faced consequences that served as a stark warning to others who might consider speaking out. James Forrestal, the First Secretary of Defense of the United States, was a man of principles who believed in democratic transparency and the public's right to know about matters that could affect the future of humanity. Forrestal had helped build American military power during World War II, serving with distinction in multiple high-level positions, but began questioning the ethical implications of hiding such monumental discoveries from the population they were sworn to protect. Forrestal possessed detailed knowledge of the extraterrestrial recovery operations, the analysis of recovered technology, and the strategic implications of contact with superior intelligences. He was known for keeping detailed diaries of his official activities, meticulously recording conversations, meetings, and government decisions with the thoroughness of a trained historian. In 1949, it became clear to intelligence monitors that he was documenting information about the extraterrestrial program that could compromise the entire silencing operation if it ever became public. The pressure on Forrestal intensified rapidly through a coordinated campaign designed to destroy his credibility and isolate him from potential allies. Media campaigns began portraying him as mentally unstable, with carefully planted stories about erratic behavior and questionable judgment. Rumors about his psychological health circulated throughout Washington's political circles, spread by operatives who specialized in character assassination. Close colleagues were instructed to publicly question his judgment and his capacity for office, creating an atmosphere of doubt about his mental fitness. The campaign against Forrestal escalated when he began making cryptic public statements about hidden truths that the American people deserved to know, statements that were immediately seized upon by intelligence operatives as evidence of mental instability. In March 1949, Forrestal was forced to resign from his position as Secretary of Defense under pressure from President Truman, who had been convinced that Forrestal posed a security risk to sensitive government operations. Immediately after his resignation, Forrestal was admitted to Bethesda Naval Hospital for psychiatric treatment under circumstances that raised suspicions among his family and close friends. Access to Forrestal was severely restricted, with visitors limited to a carefully screened list of approved individuals. His brother Robert tried to visit him 7 times, being blocked on all occasions by hospital security citing medical protocols. Even his longtime religious confessor was prevented from meeting him, despite Forrestal's known devotion to his Catholic faith and his request for spiritual guidance during this difficult period. In the early morning of May 22, 1949, Forrestal's body was found in an inner courtyard of the hospital, 13 floors below his window, in what was immediately ruled a suicide, despite numerous inconsistencies in the official investigation. The determination of suicide was made within hours, without proper autopsy procedures, comprehensive forensic investigation, or consideration of alternative explanations. Forrestal's diaries, thousands of pages documenting meetings and government decisions over several years, were immediately confiscated by military intelligence and remained classified for decades, with many pages allegedly destroyed or permanently redacted when finally released. In the following decades, the UFO information control system evolved to become one of the most sophisticated psychological operations ever implemented, incorporating advances in behavioral psychology, mass media manipulation, and computer-assisted analysis of public opinion trends. The objective was no longer simply to deny the existence of the phenomenon, but to create an environment of perpetual confusion where truth became impossible to determine for the average researcher or interested citizen. Genuinely classified documents were occasionally leaked to researchers through carefully orchestrated channels, but always accompanied by obviously fabricated materials that would discredit the entire collection. Intelligence operatives would approach credible researchers with offers of inside information, providing them with document collections that contained authentic military reports mixed with fabricated materials designed to lead investigations down false paths. Credible military witnesses were encouraged to speak publicly about their experiences, but only after being previously debriefed and instructed about which details to reveal and which to omit, creating testimonies that were technically truthful, but strategically incomplete. The UFO research community was deliberately fragmented into conflicting factions through a divide-and-conquer strategy that prevented unified investigation efforts. Some groups received information that led them to believe in peaceful extraterrestrial visits with benevolent intentions toward humanity, while others were fed stories about hostile invasions, underground bases, and abduction programs designed to create human-alien hybrid beings. Researchers who might have collaborated effectively were turned against each other through carefully planted disagreements about fundamental aspects of the phenomenon. This system created a situation where any genuine evidence about extraterrestrial contact could be easily dismissed as just another conspiracy theory, indistinguishable from the deliberate fabrications. The very abundance of contradictory information served to discredit the entire phenomenon in the eyes of the mainstream scientific community and the general public, who understandably became skeptical of any claims about UFOs when faced with such a confusing array of conflicting evidence and bizarre theories. As technology advanced throughout the digital revolution, information control methods also became exponentially more sophisticated, incorporating artificial intelligence, social media manipulation, and algorithmic control of information distribution. With the advent of the internet, it became even easier to plant disinformation and monitor independent researchers through digital surveillance techniques that would have been impossible in previous decades. Online forums dedicated to UFO study were systematically infiltrated by intelligence operatives who used sophisticated psychological profiles to direct discussions toward irrelevant topics or promote deliberately absurd theories that would discredit serious research. These operatives, working in coordinated teams, could flood discussion threads with distracting information, create artificial controversies, and manipulate voting systems to promote or suppress specific content based on strategic objectives. Search algorithms were subtly adjusted through partnerships between intelligence agencies and major technology companies to prioritize sites that presented contradictory or sensationalist information about UFOs, while serious and well-documented research was relegated to less visible positions in search results. Social media platforms allowed the creation of mass disinformation campaigns that could be activated instantly whenever inconvenient evidence emerged, using networks of automated accounts and coordinated human operatives to shape public discourse. But specific events or revelations, the scientific community was particularly targeted through this digital strategy, with academic researchers who showed interest in the UFO phenomenon discovering that their work was systematically rejected by peer-reviewed journals, their research funding mysteriously suspended, and their professional reputations damaged through coordinated online attacks. Entire careers were destroyed through sophisticated character assassination campaigns that left no fingerprints leading back to intelligence agencies, creating a chilling effect that discouraged serious scientific investigation of the phenomenon for generations. Despite the sophisticated control systems, on several occasions throughout the decades, genuinely classified documents managed to escape the containment protocols and reach the public domain through dedicated researchers, whistleblowers, and legal challenges. These leaks provided disturbing glimpses of the real extent of government knowledge about the extraterrestrial phenomenon and the lengths to which authorities would go to maintain secrecy. One of the most significant document releases occurred through Freedom of Information Act requests in the 1970s, when persistent researchers finally forced government agencies to admit they had secretly investigated thousands of UFO sightings while publicly denying any interest in the phenomenon. Internal memoranda revealed that high-ranking military officials took the evidence very seriously, considered some cases as genuinely inexplicable using known technology, and maintained active programs to monitor and analyze ongoing UFO activity around sensitive military installations. Another crucial leak occurred in the 1980s, when documents detailing specific military protocols for recovering objects of unknown origin reached civilian researchers through sources within the intelligence community. These manuals provided step-by-step instructions for establishing security perimeters around crash sites, handling extraterrestrial biological entities with proper containment procedures, and implementing disinformation strategies for managing media coverage of incidents. The documents revealed a level of preparation and standardization that suggested such recoveries were not rare occurrences, but routine operations requiring established protocols. More recently, declassified documents have revealed the existence of multi-million-dollar military programs dedicated to studying unidentified aerial phenomena, including the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program and its successors. These programs operated for decades with black budget funding, while the government publicly maintained it had no interest in UFOs, employing teams of scientists, engineers, and intelligence analysts to study recovered materials, analyze video, evidence, and develop countermeasures for potential threats. The transformation of the UFO phenomenon from a scientific question to a national security issue had profound consequences for how humanity approaches what could be the most important discovery in our species' history. By classifying evidence of extraterrestrial life as military secrets and treating the phenomenon as a potential threat rather than an opportunity for advancement, governments effectively militarized what could have been the most transformative moment in human development. This militarization created a situation where official first contact with intelligent extraterrestrial life will inevitably be mediated by military and intelligence institutions, rather than by the international scientific community or diplomatic corps. The implications of this reality are staggering, as it means humanity may lose the opportunity to approach extraterrestrial contact as a unified species seeking knowledge and peaceful cooperation, instead defaulting to defensive postures based on worst-case threat assessments. Furthermore, the militarization of the phenomenon has prevented the development of international protocols for dealing with evidence of extraterrestrial life, despite the fact that such contact would affect all of humanity regardless of national borders. While countries around the world maintain their own secret UFO investigation programs, there is virtually no international scientific cooperation on what may be the most important discovery in human history, creating a dangerous situation where national security concerns override species-wide interests. The military approach has also influenced how recovered extraterrestrial technology is studied and potentially developed, with emphasis placed on weapons applications and defensive systems, rather than peaceful uses that could benefit all humanity. This orientation ensures that any technological advances derived from extraterrestrial sources will be controlled by military establishments and used to maintain existing power structures rather than advancing human civilization as a whole. The information control techniques developed specifically to deal with the UFO phenomenon did not remain confined to this specific topic, but became a template for managing public perception across a wide range of sensitive government operations. The methods perfected over decades of psychological operations against the UFO research community were subsequently refined and applied to political dissent, environmental activism, social justice movements, and any other area where public awareness might threaten established power structures. The strategy of mixing partial truths with deliberate disinformation became a standard model for managing public narratives about sensitive topics ranging from military operations to corporate malfeasance. The technique of fragmenting research communities through promoting conflicting theories was refined and applied to social and political movements, preventing effective organization and unified action on important issues. Perhaps most significantly, the normalization of the idea that certain information is too dangerous for the public to know established a precedent for increasingly higher levels of government secrecy in Western democracies. This precedent has been used to justify classification of information about government surveillance programs, environmental disasters, corporate influence on public policy, and numerous other issues that directly affect citizens' lives and democratic decision-making processes. Despite decades of sophisticated information control, public awareness about UFOs has undergone a remarkable transformation in recent years, driven by a combination of official disclosures, military whistleblower testimonies, and technological advances that make evidence harder to suppress. Official revelations about military UFO investigation programs, testimonies from credible military pilots with impeccable service records, and official government recognition of the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena have fundamentally changed the nature of public debate about extraterrestrial life. However, this new official openness may represent simply the evolution of information control strategy rather than genuine transparency, as intelligence agencies adapt their methods to an era of increased public skepticism about government honesty. By admitting the existence of inexplicable phenomena while simultaneously framing the issue strictly in terms of national security threats and potential foreign adversary technology, governments may be implementing a more sophisticated form of narrative management that maintains control while appearing to embrace openness. The current approach allows authorities to acknowledge undeniable evidence while directing public attention toward conventional explanations like advanced Chinese or Russian aircraft, thereby avoiding the more profound implications of genuinely extraterrestrial technology. This strategy satisfies public curiosity while maintaining the essential secrecy around recovered materials, ongoing research programs, and historical cover-up operations that could expose decades of illegal activity if fully revealed. The question that remains unanswered is whether this new phase of controlled revelation represents a genuine step toward total transparency or simply represents the latest adaptation of disinformation techniques for a digital age where traditional methods of information control have become less effective due to global communications and independent media sources. The history of government control of UFO information offers profound and disturbing lessons about the nature of power, knowledge, and democracy in the modern world, revealing how small groups of individuals in positions of authority can effectively control public understanding of fundamental questions about the nature of reality itself. This case study demonstrates that democratic institutions, scientific organizations, and media outlets can be compromised or manipulated when sufficient resources and coordination are applied by intelligence agencies operating in secrecy. More disturbingly, this history suggests that there may be other equally significant secrets being maintained through similar information management techniques across various fields of human knowledge. If governments were capable of suppressing evidence of extraterrestrial contact for over 70 years, involving thousands of military personnel, scientists, and government officials, what other transformative discoveries might be being hidden? From humanity through similar operations, the digital age has brought new challenges and opportunities for information control that make traditional methods seem primitive by comparison. While the internet allows faster dissemination of information and enables independent researchers to collaborate globally, it also facilitates the spread of disinformation on an unprecedented scale and provides intelligence agencies with powerful tools for monitoring and manipulating public discourse. The algorithms that govern what information people see online can be subtly manipulated to shape public opinion in ways that make narrative control even more effective than it was during the era of traditional mass media dominance. Artificial intelligence and machine learning systems now enable the creation of sophisticated disinformation campaigns that can adapt in real time to counter emerging evidence or shifting public opinion, making it increasingly difficult for citizens to distinguish between authentic information and strategically crafted propaganda designed to serve institutional interests rather than public knowledge. The operation to silence UFO documents represents far more than a simple government conspiracy designed to hide embarrassing military failures or protect national security secrets. It exemplifies how institutional power can be used to control not just access to information, but the very framework through which entire populations perceive and understand reality itself. This case demonstrates that democratic societies are vulnerable to systematic deception when intelligence agencies operate without meaningful oversight or accountability to the citizens they ostensibly serve. For more than 7 decades, some of the most important secrets in human history have been kept hidden through a sophisticated combination of official denial, strategic disinformation, systematic elimination of physical evidence, intimidation of witnesses, and manipulation of scientific institutions. This operation not only prevented humanity from understanding its true situation in the cosmos and accessing potentially transformative extraterrestrial technology, but also established dangerous precedents for government information control that threaten the fundamental principles of democratic governance and scientific inquiry. What makes this story even more disturbing is the strong possibility that it represents only the most visible example of a much larger pattern of institutional deception affecting numerous areas of human knowledge and social development. If secret organizations were able to maintain control over evidence of extraterrestrial life for so long, while successfully discrediting thousands of credible witnesses and researchers, what other fundamental secrets about the nature of reality, human history, technological capabilities, or social possibilities might be being systematically concealed from public awareness? The truth about UFOs may finally be emerging through official channels, but this revelation is occurring only in a carefully controlled manner and within strict parameters established by the same institutional structures that maintained the secrecy for decades. The critical question we must ask ourselves is whether we are really approaching genuine transparency and democratic accountability, or whether we are simply witnessing the evolution of information control techniques adapted for a new era of global communication and heightened public skepticism toward government institutions. What do you believe is still being hidden from humanity in this age of supposed transparency? Will we ever achieve complete disclosure about what our governments know regarding extraterrestrial life, recovered technology, and the true history of human contact with non-human intelligence? And perhaps most importantly, what lessons should this extraordinary story teach us about the nature of power, knowledge, and truth in our complex modern societies? The fundamental human drive for knowledge and understanding can never be completely suppressed, regardless of how sophisticated the control systems become, or how powerful the institutions that seek to manage public perception. The search for truth continues through the dedicated efforts of researchers, whistleblowers, and citizens who refuse to accept official narratives without question. It remains up to each individual to decide whether they will passively accept the versions of reality presented by authorities or actively participate in the ongoing struggle to uncover authentic knowledge about our world and our place in the universe. If this exploration of hidden history has awakened your curiosity about the mysteries and deceptions that surround us, subscribe to continue investigating the most fascinating and disturbing secrets of our time. Enable notifications to stay informed about new revelations in this ongoing journey toward truth and understanding. Remember, independent thought and persistent questioning are our greatest weapons against institutional deception and the systematic control of human knowledge.